Warning, before this video starts, I'm talking about a lot of adult themes such as self pew pew in the head region, murder, and much more adult themes in this part. So viewer discretion is advised. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you all enjoy part 3 of the Kai timeline. Hello everyone, Rune from Cybernet Moon here, and welcome back to another Tales of Kai review for Cybernet Reviews, the series where I review anything I feel like. Today we're covering the third part of the Tales of Kai series, the Detective Timeline, so let's jump right into it. Part 3 of the Tales of Kai timeline, the Detective Timeline. My personal favorite. As always, I'll set the stage with a few major characters of this section, and 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 let's start with our Kai, the brains of it all, Detective Kai. I'm a homicide detective well known for cracking several major cases for the NYC Police Department, as well as being a stern, cold, calculated man. But only because he bottles up his emotions while on the job. The moment he's off the clock, he's a wisecracking, kind, and lovable guy, especially with his girlfriend and brother. Speaking of them, the detective's gal, Sage, a Neko, or cat girl, for those who don't know what Neko means, and I just told you, so I don't know why I'm explaining it. Sage is a kind, sweet, adorable girl who just wants to make others happy, especially Kai, considering how they both consider to be the jam to their peanut butter. At least the other. At least I phrased that wrong. After Sage, we have good old veteran Cub. Why is he called veteran instead of detective? Because he's an ex-military officer turned police chief. If that Cub is, I'll revert to him and will stop as nothing to get as much info he needs out of anyone, or to put someone away just because of this. Even during his free time, he spends it at the police department and looking through cases, looking for new paths, new leads, new angles, and it's just like his brother, but while Kai is only like that on the job, that's just who Cub is down to his core. Now let's dive right into it. We open up in on May 1st of in New York City. Quite the rainy day, to be honest. It's getting late, and as this happens, Kai decides to start a stakeout. The reason for this is a couple of homicides have been happening all throughout New York and seem to be tied to the mob. Kai decides to stake them out on his own simply because no one else was willing to. You know, they all had things to do this May. Honestly, it was a big holiday for the police department coming up. It was really the chief's his retirement, which was coming up. Cub was going to retire sometime in July at the time, and they all wanted to prepare a party for him, even early as May, just to get everything ready. Kai, though, wanting to help his brother, but he knew the best present he could get him is closing as many cases as possible. Kai began his stakeout very late until he realized that waiting is boring. He was impatient and, and decided to just storm the place he saw a couple mobsters go into, an old warehouse. As he went into this place, Kai was shot at by several of them, defending himself. If only then, he shot back at a couple of them, knocking them out, trying his best not to kill them. Um, but, of course, a few slipped through the cracks. Eventually, Kai made it to the boss. The man was simply sipping a whiskey out of his cup. He was waiting for Kai. He knew eventually someone would have found him. As soon as Kai entered the room, the mobster explained to Kai that basically, the moment he fought him, it would be to the death, no matter what it was. And this fight began, and Kai used his dual pistols, while the man and mostly fought with hand-to-hand combat, at sometimes pulling out a gun or two. Eventually, Kai was able to overcome the odds, and just as Kai was about to kill him, um, simply, well, he was trying to bring him in, but he knew what he had to do. The man egged him on further. He told him that he held the title of the Wraith, a title passed down to a new bearer every time whom killed the last. It having a split path of being true order or true chaos. Yes, only the first wraith had ever been order, and every single one past that had been chaos. Kai took up the mantle, wanting to bring order. He created a high-tech mask of sorts after he killed the man, and concealing his identity, make him more of a figure rather than him trying to head something. He still wanted a normal life, and that's what he intended to get. About a week later, or, or May 12th, Kai was hanging out with Sage at their apartment, and it was overall a nice cuddle session as they were just watching a movie. It was Kai's pick. He put on mm, Tim Burton's Batman, 1989. It's quite a specific movie. For the in-game context, when these do eventually become games, generic Batman-esque movie. Kai then proceeded to, well, just get a call on his phone and see that he was needed for work. He was sad about this, but knew what he had to do. They hugged each other goodbye and left. As this happened, and Cub was across town looking into the recent mobster murders, and a man entitled the Wraith being tied to it all. Well, this man had not been seen on video or picture, but he left a marking of sorts on the building, along with a calling card that simply said that I've cleansed them. Chaos will be cleansed. Kai was developing a split personality. He already had two different paths he walked down. On, on, on his work side, cold, stern, his more, his off side. And when he had his free time, he could be, wisecracking. He could be funny. He could be who he truly was deep down. Cub did not have this side, as I've stated before. He looked for new leads over and over. And as the time went on, so did the Wraith's killing things. It became so much that eventually Cub started looking for patterns, even asking his brother for help, but Kai refused the case time and time again, saying he had more pressing matters to attend to than the smaller cases. And the moment he was done with a good chunk of them, he'd join his brother on this case, but that wasn't true at all. When it came time, mid-July, for Cub's retirement, he said that it would be postponed indefinitely until the Rafe case was done. He knew that he was alone had the mind to solve it. And so he did. He spent all of his waking hours trying to solve this case, looking for every angle he could. And so he found the lead. Neko killings. Long string of variant human, the race which all humans with animal features belong to, had been happening across us the entirety of NYC, and seemingly most had a Wraith calling card. And so, Cub asked Sage to stand in for something. And so, Cub devised a plan to hold Sage hostage to draw the Wraith out. If it didn't work, she could immediately go free. If it didn't. If it did, though, then she'd have to stay to see what the Wraith does, though he promised that no harm would come to her. He also asked to not reveal this to Kai. He knew Kai wouldn't be on board with it, but it was the only way to draw out the Wraith. He did this, broadcasting it on TV, and so came the Wraith. So came Kai. He appeared there in his mask, He changed his hairstyle as best he could. He'd never seen in person before, so this was a big monumental moment. His voice distorted thanks to the apparatus in his mask, as well as wearing a completely different style of clothing while still being in Kai-like. It was different in nature. Cub questioned the Wraith, questioned his own brother on his morality, why he killed many. The Wraith answered. Kai answered with simply, I do what I must to protect the order. However, this order he was doing was causing chaos. Chaos that he didn't know how to solve. He said to let the woman go. She had done nothing. Cub didn't. Sage began to worry. Cub didn't and just simply lightly hold on to her now. He was basically gripping her, almost choking her. Kai saw this and became extremely hostile. He even shot his pistol in the air before repeating to let her go. Cub begrudgingly did, knowing that he probably couldn't even beat this guy in a fight. It was only him after all. Backup was there. He broadcast this on TV 15 minutes ago. There's no way everyone could be at the rooftop of a random apartment building. And so he did. The Wraith then took the girl. Cub tried to call Kai, but no answer. We then cut to the Wraith and Sage. She was shocked, scared. She didn't know what to feel until they landed in an alley. And Kai took off his mask, hugging her. She was scared to know her boyfriend and of 2 years was killing many, but she was just happy to see him again, to be in his arms, to finally be with him once more. He'd become distant ever since he took up the mantle, and this meant he had a reason for it. Whether she agreed with that reason didn't matter to her in the moment. She was just happy to see the man she loved again. Kai was in shock. He wasn't sure entirely what to do. He knew that he had to stop Cub from taking this any further, but he also knew that the Wraith was hurting people. It was causing chaos, and he wasn't sure if it was causing more chaos than order. He went back to the scene where he first became the Wraith. He looked through all the logs of that old mobster that he could, even going into the police precinct, into his Kai, just to look through whatever records they had on him and his gang. Kai, as he looked through it, was talked to by Cub a bit, asking what he was doing. Kai explained that he finally was over with a couple of the small cases and could help putting time towards the Wraith case. He thought about this and decided to throw Cub off the trail. It could be him. If that happened, his crusade would be over. There would never be order, and he would never see Sage again. And that was some of the things he could never allow to happen. Because if they did, he would truly become a broken man who killed for pleasure, to feel something, rather than a man who killed to serve others, to serve the world and becoming a better place. Over time, Kai, he killed more. We cut to June. This is where Cub started to lose his mind. He called out the Wraith once again on live TV to fight him on top of the police precinct. A confrontation that Kai knew was inevitable. As this happened, and Cub prepared himself. Well, he even had backup at the ready. The Wraith stormed the precinct, and as he did, the Kai within him wallowed in regret and fear. This wasn't order. This was chaos. He realized everything he had read through the files. It had kept talking about chaos and order. More order than chaos. Why start chaos with a gang when it's much easier to form order with it? He said as he thought through to himself. And then he realized it. The chaos and order end up switching sides. They all wanted to fix everything, to fix order. They all wanted to be chaotic, as because the first one went down in history as being order, as it started as chaotic. But the more they did, the more realized that the more driven towards chaos they tried to make it, the more order the world became. And so Kai, wanting to take up order, caused true, unadulterated chaos. He got to the top of the precinct, taking out many of the officers within, not killing them. He made damn sure he didn't, because if he did, he wouldn't live with himself. As he made it to Cub at the rooftop, Cub questioned the Wraith a bit, asking why he does what he does, asking him why he conceal everything, and why make it so public, yet also so concealed. The Wraith responded with a simple phrase. Where there is order, there is chaos, and where there is chaos, there is order. It was a mantra of, of, of the Wraith, at least a mantra of Kai, once he became the Wraith. They fought. It went on for about an hour until one shot to the side put Cub out of commission. Not dead, but close. The Wraith called an ambulance as he then left. His tech had grown more advanced, grappling hooks, slingshots, things like that. Classic Batman and utilities. He left to his home to rethink and gather his thoughts. Him and Sage were practically broken. She spent some time away from him, and she just got back the day before. And what did he do immediately the day after? Get in costume and fight his way through a tower of people against him. Kai aimed his pistol to his head. He contemplated ending it. It was chaos, what he created. True chaos. He decided against it. He thought he could fix it. And then he thought through it more. He'd take his own life, but not now. Not now. If he did now, then the Wraith mantle would end, and he wanted that, but he couldn't. His mission wasn't done. Order in his eyes was still needed to be placed. As Kai, the Wraith, began to get rid of evidence against any identity he could possibly be. Cub saw this and narrowed it down to officers in the precinct. Kai made sure to make sure that Cub knew it wasn't him, working with him every single step of the way. In his head, I was the light to his L. The law lit to my Yagame. He kept doing everything he could to make sure nothing could have been him. So far so that midway through, Cub easily ruled out Kai as a possible Wraith suspect, but that still left most people in the precinct. Kai began trying to hunt down those as the Wraith that he needed to finish off. People who'd done terrible, terrible things To cause true order, he had to get rid of others who created chaos. Only then was his chaos, his order, truly complete. Killing mobsters, street gangs, drug dealers, everyone he could. Car thieves, muggers, simple threateners. They all died, their blood on his hands. And at this point, Kai felt no remorse. The Wraith felt no remorse. Eventually, the Wraith called out Cub in multiple letters. Uh, Kai wasn't sure what he was going to do. He knew he had to get his brother off the trail, but he didn't know how. He tried his best, but in the end, it came down to his life or Cub's. Kai chose his own, killing his own brother. He hung up the mantle of the Wraith. After that, directly after that, he couldn't handle it, not anymore. And so, the Wraith ended. The next day, a portal opened, and out walked a man with a sword across his shoulder. And that's where we'll be ending part 3 of the Kai timeline. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. This was fun to record, and I hope to see you all in the next one, hopefully tomorrow. This has been Cybernet Moon, signing off.